Welcome back to Deck Tech for Decks. I'm your host Caleb. We're continuing the series where we talk about the most broken cards in each color, specifically 9 of those cards, and this was by far the hardest. I was just thinking to myself, is there even 9 cards that are super broken in red? But we got there, guys. So without further ado, let's get into it. So super excited to announce I'm now partnering with Baron of Dice to bring your TCG accessories to the next level. These deck boxes are put simply just eye-catching. I'm obsessed with the leather exterior on these. It just makes the art look super unique, and that's what you're looking for whenever you're trying to show off your deck. The playmats are also super high quality. They have a non-slip backing along with hand-stitched edges featuring that eye-popping art drawn by legendary artists in the space like Ron Spencer. They're also giving me a 5% discount code for all of you guys in the audience. Again, thank you Baron of Dice for sponsoring this channel. Also, don't forget to click on those links in the description down below. You guys can get a free $15 with that whatnot link and 10% off all of your Tolarian library proxies whenever you use code DT4D. Now let's get into the first card, which is Burgi. This card says whenever you cast a spell, add 1 red to your mana pool. Until end of turn, you don't lose this mana as steps and phases in. Then you can actually cast it for the backside for 5 mana, and says you can discard a card, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play those cards this turn. She also allows you to boast twice, which is super relevant and comes up all the time. But let's talk about why she's broken. 9 times out of 10, she's just a source to get the mana you need to storm off and win the game. There's a lot of scenarios where you have a ton of cards in your hand and you need to cast a lot of them to try to find your win in these storm archetypes. And whenever you're gaining a mana every time you cast a spell, that's going to really help you get there, especially in a strategy that runs a lot of cantrips. It's really good in CEDH also, right? Because sometimes you just need 1-2 more mana to get there, and Burgi is 9 times out of 10 that mana. Especially when we're talking about high power magic and you're casting spells for free, the fact that you're netting mana off of your spells twice whenever you cast something like a Mox, right? Because the Mox generates mana and then Burgi's also generating mana, so kind of 2 mana there for 1 spell. It can be incredibly powerful and just put you over the edge to winning the game. Kiki Jiki Mirror Breaker. This one also had to make the list. There is so many combos you can do with this guy, and that just leads to him being one of the best ways you can combo kill everybody with creature. This is a 5 CMC creature with haste that taps and creates a token copy of target non-legendary creature you control. That token has haste. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. There's 2 common ways to go infinite with this guy. One, you can get your Felidar Guardian and he enters the battlefield, blinks Kiki Jiki. Kiki Jiki comes back untapped, you tap to make another Felidar Guardian, and you end up with a bunch of hasty Felidar Guardians. Additionally, you can just make a token copy of a creature that untaps another creature, and again, you'll get a hasty infinite amount of them as well. So this is just one of those very, very famous game enders that had to be included on the list. The next card is Ragavan. This is by far the best mana dork red has. It's a 1 CMC legendary creature monkey pirate that says whenever Ragavan deals combat damage to a player, you get to create a treasure token and exile the top card of that player's library. Until end of turn, you may cast that card. It also has a dash ability, so you can dash it out, attack with it, and then it's going to get returned back to your hand. Kind of a way to protect it and get instant value at the same time. He does lose power the longer the game goes on because people just get blockers up, but in the early game, like I said, this is the best mana dork red has. Going on to the sorceries, we have Gamble. This is mono red Entomb. 1 mana, search your library for a card, put that card into your hand, and then discard a card at random. 9 times out of 10, it's going to be the card you tutored for just because that is how this card works. It's like, okay, if I don't discard this card, I will win the game. Yeah, you're going to discard that card without fail. Always doesn't always happen, but you know what I mean. Whenever it needs to be that card, it's never that card. The next one is Jeska's Will. This is a 3 CMC sorcery that says choose one. If you control your commander, you can choose both. Add red mana for each card in target opponent's hand and exile the top 3 cards of your library. You may play those cards this turn. So not only is this card advantage, it's ramp. It does some extremely broken things whenever you're casting it over and over again from your graveyard, because not only does it give you card advantage, it gives you the mana to cast those cards. This spell is extremely powerful. Wheel of Fortune, also super powerful, also super expensive. For 3 mana, you get a spell that says all players must discard their hand and draw 7 cards. The card advantage is insane, and usually in the strategies you're running this with, you either dump your entire hand onto the battlefield pretty quickly, so it's refilling more cards for you than your opponents, or you have a way to kind of break parity on it, a way that makes it more viable for you to be running it than your opponents, right? So 9 times out of 10, this is incredibly powerful, especially when we're talking about mono red, right? There's not a lot of cards for 3 mana that just straight up draw you 7 cards. Deflecting Swat is also a super powerful instant spell. This is a 3 CMC spell that you can cast for free if you control your commander, and then it allows you to choose new targets for target spell or ability. I really like this card. Sometimes it's even more powerful than a counter spell. Let's say someone goes to exile your commander, and instead you changed it to exiling the piece that's preventing you from winning the game. Tybalt's Trickery is another instant spell that I think is very, very strong. This is 2 CMC. It says counter target spell, choose 1, 2, or 3 at random. Its controller mills that many cards, then exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card with a different name than that spell. They may cast that spell without paying its mana cost. Then they put the exiled cards on the bottom of their library in random order. So it's essentially a counter spell that's also a Chaos Warp. We counter whatever's on the stack, and then they get a warp into something and cast it for free. Now, this is something that prevents somebody from winning or protects your win, because you don't want to cast this into something willy-nilly and end up with something worse than, you know, what you were getting rid of in the first place. So don't use it on anything. This is a protection spell or a prevention from winning spell. This isn't a I'm gonna get rid of their value spell, if that makes sense. The next card is Blood Moon. This is a 3 CMC enchantment that says non-basic lands are mountains. That's insane. If you're not running a red deck, you just cannot play the game now, especially if you're not running any basic lands, which you know those greedy Magic players aren't playing any non-basic lands. Another card I did want to mention is Magus of the Moon. It's essentially the same thing as Blood Moon, but it's a creature instead. Now, there's some pros and cons to both, right? You can say that Blood Moon is harder to remove since everybody has mountains now, and enchantments are really hard to remove in red, right? You could also say that Magus of the Moon is a little bit better because you can tutor for it a lot easier using your creature tutors. So it's a little bit of a toss-up, but I'm not going to use 2 slots on 2 cards to do the same thing, right? This couldn't be a power 9 mono red list if we didn't talk about Underworld Breach. This card allows most decks to go near infinite and find a way to piece together a win con. It can be dirtily at times if you don't build around it, but using some of the most powerful cards in Magic, it's not very hard to just win the game. You can use Brain Freeze, Lion Eye Diamond, and Underworld Breach. But let's talk about what Underworld Breach does. This is a 2 CMC enchantment that gives all of the spells in your graveyard flashback. All you have to do is pay the mana cost and exile 3 cards from your graveyard. So once you build up a decent graveyard, again, like I said, you can kind of just find wins with this card and just steal the game from your opponents. Last but not least, I did want to give an honorable mention to Blasphemous Act. This one is just one of the best board wipes in red, if not the best board wipe in red, so I did have to give it an honorable mention. It cost 9 CMC, but 9 times out of 10 you are only casting this for 1 red mana because it costs 1 less for each creature on the battlefield. And then it says Blasphemous Act deals 13 damage to each creature. Kind of insane, and there's also a lot of ways to dodge this, right? Just getting protection from red is going to protect your entire board, or if you have big enough creatures, you can protect your entire board. But let's be honest, 9 times out of 10, this is an entire board wipe, and it's going to only cost 1 red mana, which is very important whenever you're talking about board wipes, because the downside of board wipes is you're usually spending 6 mana to get rid of the entire board and then passing the turn because you utilized all your resources. The thing with Blasphemous Act is you can spend 1 mana and then rebuild your board before everyone else does. Not as good as Cyclonic Rift, but it's kind of red's best imitation of it, so it's going to get an honorable mention for that. That's going to do it for today's video. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Anti-Venom's coming out soon, so, you know, pay attention.